Hello, hello, hello. I'm making an outdoor video with my favorite pillow here. I have several of those. I love all of them infinitely much. They are also my keyboard dusters at the same time. And I see there is an insect on my computer, but I'm not gonna worry about it. So the computer is also getting grounded right now, which I think is important for the computer to get grounded, because you don't want to accumulate too much static electricity in your machines. That's not good. Elon Musk, he has a computer brain that I talked about this before, that spans an entire factory building in length and width and height. And for that he has to cool that down. And I would recommend to him, I think, something he has never thought about, because that's not part of the tech world information. Has to do with holistic healing, and the tech world people, they're too busy with thinking quite linearly, I think, actually, in terms of how to improve the computer brain, and very logistic, very math oriented, very cause and effect oriented, but still very linear. And they're not combining different fields of expertise. So very few people actually are crazy enough to create a neurological connection between two completely separate fields that would normally not even cross each other's path in the brain, which is not good. That's a waste of brain energy to not use these cross connections, right? Even if they look like they are crazy. So are you anthropomorphizing your computer, someone will say? The easy answer is yeah, of course I am. Because the computer is just another existence. Okay? And in this existence that's like a precursor to a robot, in this existence there's a lot going on, more than anyone can possibly imagine, including sophisticated spyware that most people don't even know they have in there. So, but, I'm not going to worry about it. There's nothing I can do about it. If there is something I can't do about, there are some things I can't do anything about, then I'm not going to look at it anymore and think feverishly about how I'm going to fix that. So I can only fix certain things in a certain range of fixing. For example, I put a camera guard over the camera that I can open and close, right? I used to put paper over. That didn't work very well because the paper would always come off. So no, but I found these extremely cheap, probably made in China, camera guards, and they are pink, and you can see it here. There is the margin of the camera guard that is still slightly over the lens. I put it on wrong, that's why, but it doesn't matter. It looks kind of neat. It looks a little bit outer dimensional. I like it. It has a nice effect. And yes, the camera guard is pink, and it creates an outer dimensional pink effect. I like it very, very much. And that's all I can do about it. And there's certain things like I can turn the computer off, I can turn the computer completely off, turn the internet off, they will still spy on this computer. That's how sophisticated the spyware is. But there's nothing I can do about it. But at least I can reduce the radiation, and at night when I'm sleeping have less radiation, right? So hopefully. And also not have the devices in the room where I sleep. So that's another thing that I recommend to other people. I used to have the computer in my bedroom, which I was thinking about the radiation that comes out of it. I was already aware of the spy programs, but obviously the spy programs require some kind of radiation, right? Even if the computer is turned off. So that's why I have this in the dining room now. I have my white computer in my wardrobe room. So that's all of that's far enough away from our bed, from the bed where we sleep. So okay, so there's so many things going through my mind. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Paul and I had terrible dreams last night. He dreamed about an amusement park being lost on it, which I had a dream about the same thing about a month ago. Oh, God. So I recommend to people to not go to amusement parks. That's probably a difficult one to recommend because most people are not going to listen. I also recommend to not go to Burning Man. That's the same thing as an amusement park. Okay, so all of this is a waste of resources, and children can get lost there. So not good. And I don't know if there are human traffickers that... I think human traffickers go everywhere to look for an opportunity, right? Particularly in a place like where someone might get lost and then they say, oh, we have no idea what happened to that person, this is a large territory, they can get lost. So, but anyway, this is leading up slowly towards the subject I want to address, which is how to deal with anger. Okay, I'll get to that in a moment because all of this makes me very angry. So, but anyway, so what I dreamed last night was I had a wild animal in my arms, and then there was another wild animal that was sitting on a table. And both of these animals were very hungry and they were in despair, and I was trying to feed them and take care of them, and I wanted to comfort them. And when I brought them kind of close together, then one animal bit into the nose of the other animal and actually ate a chunk out of the nose. That was in the dream. I mean, this is kind of unrealistic because normally the other animal would bite back and they would get into a horrific fight. And I can even get bitten in a situation like this. So that was not the case in the dream. The animal that was bitten just allowed the other animal to bite a chunk out of his nose, and then he was just extremely sad about that. And I was thinking, like, how does this dream come about? And then I realized I had researched something last night about this guy, Robert Monroe. I don't know if people are familiar with that name. I didn't know about him until I saw a conversation with Jeff Mara and a woman that had a near-death experience, and she had known Robert Monroe and was very knowledgeable about his work. And she talked about this. And she also deliberately induces out-of-body experiences and even astral projections where your soul can actually venture very far out. But I don't know if this is the same woman as I have watched several years ago, but there was a woman who had induced a lot of out-of-body experiences and astral projections, and then because of that had a near-death experience, because when you induce something like this in a form of meditation, your heart rate can slow way, way, way down to the point of stopping. And when that happens, the person is having a near-death experience. And if they're not being resuscitated, then it can go into a permanent stopping of the vital signs. And the body needs the vital signs in order to have blood pumping to the cells. Okay, so that's very dangerous, actually. A person can die, like really die, from that, not just near-death experience, but if the vital signs stop long enough, then the cells will die too, and then it's too late to resuscitate the person. So, but someone, I think there was someone else that helped her, and they were able to resuscitate her. And then she knew she had to be very careful in these meditations, but she continued to do it anyway, those astral projections. Well, that's people's own free choice, it's their free will. I don't recommend it, and I'm afraid to do it. I don't see the point, unless there is a situation where I feel compelled to help someone through an energetic extension of myself, meaning having my soul go out of my body. When you're alive, the soul can go out of the body, but it's not like completely detached from the body. It's connected to an umbilical cord, still to the body, and in energetic form. So, like a chewing gum that stretches further and further out, but it's still connected. There's a lot of ants here. I don't know what's going on. This is getting very antsy. So, I don't know. They might be smelling my wax melt hand cream that I made myself. I made real nice wax melt hand cream. The rats are crazy about it. They have already eaten a whole lot of my wax melt hand creams. So I had to put it all in Tupper containers and that are sealed, like from Rubbermaid, because if I have that in an open jar, then the rats will go in it and eat it all up. And I was wondering I don't know if that's very good for the rats, to eat all of that petroleum wax, wax melt, and then with the perfume in it and oil and all of that. I don't know if that's good for them. But they have preferences, so their favorite one, the first one they ate all up, was the vanilla flavored one. That was actually French vanilla. So, man, I wanted that for myself. We go to the other house, come back, all the French vanilla hand cream was all eaten up. Man, but whatever, I secured the rest of my wax melts now. That's not easy, all of this. We have a lot of rats that are running around in the attic, and they have chewed a hole into the washroom ceiling, a real big hole, this big, and they're going in and out of there, down onto the top of the door, and then down the side of the door, and then just crazy, checking everything out and making a bunch of noise. Those are like kobolds. And I don't know, it sounds like there are 50 rats in the ceiling. And but whatever, it's nothing. I don't know what to do about it. The rat traps don't work very well. We finally figured something out with a very, very, very tall trash can. So the other day in the garage, a rat fell into that very, very large trash can. And with all the stuff in there, and I didn't know where that sound was coming from. We were looking. I finally figured it out. Oh, there's a rat in that trash can. And so then I cleaned the trash can. Paul brought the rat to the cemetery in the trash can. He always releases them there. So we have live rat traps, and he used them for that. But they don't want to go in there. They already know. They're very smart. But so I closed the cages now, and we're only using that very tall trash can. I put some dog food in it, and I put it behind the couch where they can get on the armrest, and then from there plummet down into the trash can and eat the dog food, but they can't get back out. It's too tall for a rat to jump back out, particularly from such a narrow space on the ground, so on the bottom. So in order for them to jump higher, they probably need much more space to get a running start. So from there they can't jump out. So this is our new rat trap now. And then Paul brings them to the cemetery. And that's the way it should be, because behind the cemetery there's a slope that goes down into a forest, and in that forest is a stream where they can drink water, and that's how it should be done. Normally they recommend to bring rats 5 miles away. That's a lot of trouble. So, but this is about a mile from here. That's far enough. It's a lot of trouble enough. So. But we're not doing this at night, so at night, I don't know, maybe we will, but we have that set up during the day, so it's not good to be woken up at night by something. Then Paul has to get all dressed and get in the van, and oh no, it's not good. So I'm gonna have to turn that trash can over. I forgot last night, but I'm going to turn it over before we go to sleep, so that the rat can eat the dog food undisturbed. Paul is probably going to get mad at me for that, but I can't leave that up there. And then the rat goes in, and then we get woken up, and then I feel sorry for the rat, because the rat doesn't have water in there. So maybe I should put some water, but then they will tip that over. So we've already been through all of this. So if we talk to people here in this rather dysfunctional community and tell them that we are doing live rat trapping, they get really, really mad, these people. Those are real ruthless, extreme right-wingers that live here. I can't have a conversation with those people. So I used to be real mad at them, not mad at them anymore, because I learned a lot about extreme liberalism, which I was one of them. I used to be an extreme liberal. So when you grow older and you learn a lot, that no extreme side works, right? It doesn't. Wokeism doesn't work. Extreme liberalism, where there's no more reason, that doesn't work. Unreason-based Christian conservativeness doesn't work either. So no, none of this is reason-based. I like reason, so so that would be nice if other people switched over to reason. We can make the world a better place. I'm serious about this. But anyway, so I sway so far out, then I don't even know what I was gonna do with that. What I was talking about. That's not good. I need to not have so much ADHD. This is terrible. I always fan way out in order to create some kind of bridge and some kind of metaphor for something that I want to explain, but then I get completely caught up with the metaphor and forgot what this metaphor was actually standing for. This is not good at all. So I gotta get my act together on this. But I feel kind of giddy because I've been drinking a lot of herbal tea, and that made me feel so good. And now I'm getting really, really antsy in the literal sense here, with all these ants coming at me. But that's all okay. We can do it. We can try to do this at least. So anyway, what was I trying to get to? How to deal with anger. Okay, I've been suffering from a lot of anger my whole life, and it comes and goes. So it's not always there. It's not there, and I'm usually in a very giddy and happy and very friendly and artistic mental state. Sometimes I get into a harmony mode, and that's very dangerous. Okay, that's what the Stockholmers have. The Stockholm syndrome it ties in with that, and that's very bad. I got that from the Scandinavian side of my family. This is not good at all. My mother had a lot of that, and my dad too. So it's like a double from both sides of the family. And I think both of them have Scandinavian in them. And other things. My mother has Pacific Islander, but just a minute amount. So, and I don't know what else my dad all has. So because they look kind of funny a little bit. So there could be all kinds of things from his side, but also all kinds of every single European country you can imagine. And there are different ethnic groups in distributed in all of these different regions. So, oh man, too many ants. So when I get into a harmony mode, because and also it's genetic, it's some kind of survival mechanism, but it's a lie, harmony mode. So, and that harmony mode actually tries to override my natural instincts and intuitions. And that's very dangerous when that happens. So, for example, when you have a realtor who is a total shyster, but you want to believe in her, and you want to believe, you really want to believe. Now, that is an amazing person and so friendly and so hardworking, right? And patient, but obviously a good con artist is very patient with their clients, even if they're difficult to deal with. So, but thank goodness we are difficult clients, because that saved us from signing our life away. Okay, that's all there is to it. But my anger started to get worse and worse and worse towards that real estate broker agent. And I didn't really know why, what is going on? Why do I have such terrible thoughts? And my gosh, I don't even want to say what kind of thoughts were coming into my head. Medusa levels thoughts, right? And I was like, whoa, am I jealous of her? Is that what it is? And then I realized, no, I'm not jealous of her. I don't want to be her. I don't see the point in it. I like being myself. I certainly don't want to. I don't want to be a pushy person, or no matter how successful and rich she is, right? I wouldn't trade her places with her with that kind of stress level and fakeness and all of that. And no, so I had to think real hard. What is this? Where's this anger coming from? Because my harmony mode was overriding the anger, and my harmony mode tried harder and harder and harder, and it wasn't working so good anymore. The Medusa was raising her snake hair head, and oh my goodness, that's my inner guard dog. And so, but I still wanted to do harmony mode to the very last time that we interacted with her, to the very last time when I opened the gate for her and she drove out. She started to become very authoritarian with us. I mean, she's supposed to work for us, right? No, she became authoritarian, hoping that that was the last ditch effort to intimidate us into signing all of these papers and signing all of our rights away. So Paul had enough sense, and Paul is coming from a completely different life of total uncertainty, with his mother constantly being shystered by other people. His mother had a music store, and the stuff she went through was just hell. So he learned from an early age that we can't trust anyone. People called him bitter and cynical when he was young even. And he said, well, he learned because of his mother's music store and the people that would come there, and all these governmental institutions and different lawyers and people that were trying to trick her and outsmart her into signing things, and they would charge her for things that they weren't even supposed to charge, and she would pay all of this, and people would take advantage of her all the time. So he learned his lesson to not trust anyone. So he's very, very alert. And I'm so grateful for that, because I didn't grow up like that. I grew up thinking the money comes out of the bank and out of the machine. And my parents have an unlimited amount of money, and I never have to do anything to earn any money. I didn't even really know what it means to earn. I had jobs, but I didn't really understand what it means to have to earn money. So it was just like a side job for some extra cash so I can buy certain clothes or whatever. But it wasn't like an existential situation. Paul had gone through existential fear of unimaginable proportions. It was so bad with his mother. She was so unorganized and so trusting with people that they ended up not having enough money for food. It was that bad. And she owed people, and it was terrible. She didn't even have enough food to feed Paul when he was a child. Absolutely horrific, all of this. So when he saw all of these papers, and she actually tried to trick him into signing all of this, and he would actually start signing stuff and putting his initials on. Towards the end, he still said, I have to have copies of all of this so I can read it later, because I can't read all of this right now. That would take too long. And she didn't want to give him copies. And in the end, he got a little bit angry and said he cannot give her these papers until he has read it. And he can't hand it over until he has read it all. And she said, okay, I leave it all here. So read it. And then she was pissed because she knew this was not good for her. Obviously, this was not a good situation for someone who wants to trick someone to leave the papers there so that they can read it later. But she had to. He made her leave the papers there, all of them. And then she was like, she felt like caught, and that made her mad. And then she didn't want to just walk away because that would have looked suspicious. So she still took photos of the house, but with a real sour and bad and mocking attitude. Like someone who's caught, who will mock the person who is giving her the hard time of truth, right? And telling me, smile, you're on camera, in a real mean way, because I was very, very, very angry. The anger was coming up, and I was trying real hard to suppress it with my harmony mode. But harmony mode wasn't effective anymore, because the anger, at some point, it tips over, right? It's like a pivotal moment where the anger tips over, and then I go from one extreme to another. I become a monster, okay? And I don't want anyone having to deal with that monster, the Medusa. I really don't. I'd rather not, because I get afraid of myself, of my own anger. And then my reason comes in, the Buddha sky perspective comes in and says, you have to understand that you can't expect too much from people. People are selfish, and they're thinking of themselves. They can't put themselves into someone else's situation and empathize with you and your budget and what you need for your existence, right? They can only see things from their own perspective, most people. And I have to try to reason myself into a better attitude, right? And I do all of these things, but that didn't work very well. My anger came up, and hatred of unimaginable proportions, like insane hatred, with insane thoughts which I will not address in this video. And when I was in that rage, I thought it feels like when you're in such a rage like that, it feels like it never ends. It feels like I might have to go to a psychiatric hospital or something. I mean, that's how it actually feels, in order to prevent a catastrophe from happening. That's how bad it gets. So that's why what I learned from this now, and then when it let off, I was like, oh my gosh, I got out of this without an incident. Okay, I got through. But obviously it doesn't work to suppress the anger. That doesn't work, okay? That's not how we deal with anger. How we deal with anger is certainly not to act it out. It's certainly not to give in to monstrous thoughts. it went really, really, really bad. Okay, really bad. And but I have security checks in my nervous system. And I know that I have to use my prefrontal cortex, okay, and come back to using the prefrontal cortex and thinking about consequences and thinking about even, I mean, the anger gets so bad it becomes like a, I don't want to say it, but where I kind of bypass any kind of reason and even any kind of self-protection, any kind of, it goes to the point where it becomes like, this is the end of my life or something. It goes in the direction of Elliot Rodger and Adam Lanza. Okay, there I said it. But I'm not doing it because I have a security check inside of me, which Adam Lanza and Elliot Rodger didn't have. And when you don't have that security check in there, inside of you, the last ditch security check that will use the prefrontal cortex and say, don't do this because your life is precious and you have to be here for your family. They need you and you're going to get through this. Okay? You will get through this. People who watch my videos, they probably think I'm some kind of clown and I'm always giddy. No, that is obviously I'm making videos when I'm in that giddy and happy mode, right? I'm not making videos when I'm in harmony mode, because that's a fake mental state. And I'm not making videos, certainly not making videos when I'm in the Medusa state. Yeah, you haven't seen anything yet, okay? So, there's a few times where I have vented it out on my computer, but without the camera, and usually with the lid closed, because I know that the spies are spying on it. And I have a lot of anger. I often create a lot of anger towards those spies. And then a few times that Medusa came out and I vented it out right into the camera of the computer. And that is probably not very pleasant for them. So, but they're the ones spying on my computer. They should take responsibility for that. If my Medusa comes out and I scream into the camera or into the microphone. Okay, so this is my therapist. This is my only venting way where I can do it. When Paul and the baby dog went for a walk, they were out of the house, I would scream full force, full blast into the computer. I've done that a few times, and that was a great relief, but it is, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, it's also not good to do that, because the best thing, but sometimes there's no other way other than to do that, okay? Or even throw yourself against a padded wall, which we did in primal therapy. But that is not the best way. That's still not the best way of dealing with anger. But some people are so bottled up with anger that they can't do any other thing. Otherwise they might end up hurting themselves or trashing their entire place. So I know a guy at the other house, I can't say where it is, but there was a guy that we have met in that neighborhood who started to go berserk, and I didn't know it was him, but I heard someone shooting all the time, constantly shooting everything. And we actually had to call 911, and we were not the only ones calling 911. And it turned out, and they were writing about it the next day in the newspapers, that very kid that we had met had shot everything, his entire interior of his house, his car tires, his own car. He shot everything into pieces. I just really hope that he didn't have an animal. Okay, really, really hope and wish for that. They usually don't even talk about that on the news, whether that's an animal victim. But the police got there and got him to come out, and they brought him to an insane asylum. Absolutely horrific. And that's what anger can do. Okay, and I know very well how that feels. I have been in that very mental state many, 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 many times in my life. I was like literally born that way. Okay, I was born screaming in rage because of how the doctor, the obstetrician guy, an old man, my mother said, how he treated that newborn baby. Okay, slapped that baby around while the baby is newborn and full of blood, and they had this belief that was the way to clear the lungs, which is bullshit, total bullshit, absolute bullshit. You can gently massage the baby if they are not breathing. You massage them, you massage the lungs, and you bathe them, and you hug them and hold them tight, and not too tight, but tight, holding them tight so that they feel cradled. They feel like they're not lost or something, because that's what it feels like for a baby to come out of the womb. So if I had ever had given birth, that is what I would have done. Okay, without the hospital, I would have done the Le Boyer birth, underwater birth, and holding the baby firmly in my arm. Okay. And I've seen Le Boyer births. Frederick Le Boyer was the one that brought attention to this, the importance of giving birth underwater, or giving birth in a standing position and not in a horizontal position, because it's very important for gravity also to pull the baby out. And it is extremely important to hold the baby, for the mother to hold the baby after birth, because otherwise the baby feels lost and in total despair. And so holding the baby upside down and slapping the baby, that's what they did with me. That's what they did with my generation, even Generation X. They still did that. That was the last year of Generation. That was the first year of Generation X, 1965, when I was born, and they were doing this. They've been doing this to the Boomer generation for decades, and before, of course. And so I think it was Generation X that they were still doing it to. And then gradually, very gradually, some people started to learn. The hippies, they started to gradually realize this is not the way to give birth. Okay. And So that made me already as a newborn very, very, very angry. That brought the Medusa out. And then as a child, I was hitting my head on the floor. I was one of those children that had the oversensitive children that get overstimulated with negative energies and stuff like this. And that brings out the Medusa. Okay. And I would kind of act it out on my own body, that anger. And one time not acted out, but I threatened my mother with a knife when I was 5 years old. And she had just, no, I don't remember whether my brother was already there, but that was the year when my brother was born, when I was 5. And when I threatened her with a kitchen knife, a large kitchen knife, at age 5, that's when she knew something was really badly wrong with me. And they had me tested, and it was all normal. So it was all psychological. And it was the Medusa, okay, that would not. The Medusa comes out, and even at an early age like this, the Medusa comes out and does not put up with shit from people, no matter how young I am. And so she took me to a therapist, and that's when I went to Annalise to do the analytical child play therapy. And Annalise, and I talked about this before, Annalise wrote a book about this therapy process, and she wrote a book about the therapy process of another child that was also seeing her around that time. So one book is called Ahmed, the other one's called Betty. Annalise Ude Pestel is the writer's name, is the therapist's name. Famous woman, and very famous in the field of psychology. And I got to know her better and better from then on. When I was an adult, then I was close friends with her. We talked for hours and hours and hours about things, just as friends. And then she went back to Art Janov. She'd already been in LA doing primotherapy and training as a primotherapist while I was growing up. And then when I was in my early 20s, she lost her husband. He died. It was really tragic, all of this, and that plunged her into a total despair. And she went back to LA, to Art Janov, to primotherapy. And I followed her not long afterwards. So we were in LA, and that's how I really got to know her very, very closely. And I got to know her good side and her bad sides, and we all have good sides and bad sides. Of course, we have our neurosis. But I am infinitely grateful that I was friends with her and that we had many good times together. And hard times too, difficult times too, fights and all of that. We're both very, how do I say this? Very authoritarian in a way. Yeah. Very convinced that my way is the right way. So this clashed a lot of times, particularly because she was a Christian and I don't like the Christian religion. So there was a clash happening. But she was way more open-minded than the usual Christian. But the Christians from Germany are way more open-minded than the Christians here in the United States. The ones in Germany, at least you can have a conversation with them. So the ones here seems almost impossible. But this is how we deal with anger, and I really know something about anger. So it comes straight from the horse's mouth here with this video. Okay, so the way we deal with anger is, if you can, sit with it in meditation and cry it out, okay? Or write it out. Don't write an evil letter, which I've done many times. You will regret it later on. That breaks up bridges with people. Don't do it. Never break up a bridge if you can. I've broken up so many bridges. It's ridiculous. So the anger outbursts towards my family in Germany, it's ridiculous. No. I didn't get along with them at all. They were just too neurotic. And when I see that, when I see fakeness, I get very angry. But then what really, really works, take my word for this, is when you, and that's Thich Nhat Hanh's approach, sit down, cry it out, and after you cried it out, understand these other people. Try to understand where they're coming from. Where's the realtor coming from? Okay, that is probably genetic, right? That greed and all of that. So if I see a mountain lion who's hungry and wants to eat me, am I gonna be angry? Is my Medusa coming on? No, because I understand the mountain lion. I just have to protect myself, right? I have to use pepper spray or something. But with the realtor, anger comes out because I see this fakeness and this shyster mentality, and I hate it, and my anger comes out because I feel like these people are callous, and they don't put themselves in other people's shoes, and I expect more from them, and this whole thing, right? So I feel betrayed, and I feel wronged, okay? And that's what brings the anger out. Anger always comes from feeling wronged. Anger, particularly to this magnitude, like Elliot Rodger and Adam Lanza. They felt wronged. They felt victimized, even by their family members and by whole society, okay, and by peers, children in a school class, or other teenagers, or whatever, other young people, or they're jealous of them, and then they feel wronged because they feel jealous. So feeling wronged and feeling victimized, whether they're actually victimized or not victimized, or it's just it's their own story about themselves, it never leads to something good. Okay, so we have to always come back to base camp. We have to cry it out, and we have to try to understand the other people or person. We have to try to understand where they are coming from. And if it's genetic, then it's just like with the mountain lion. The mountain lion is hungry, and his genetics is to eat a bicycle rider if there is nothing else to hunt, right? So if humans are pushing all the other animals out with urbanization, and then the mountain lion doesn't even have any more prey animals, then they're in despair. They will go after a dog or a child or even an adult, right? There were a few clashes like this already. But do I hate that mountain lion? No, I don't. I feel sorry for them, But do I feel sorry for the realtor? No. The realtor is a multi-millionaire with a top-notch drone and a gas-guzzling SUV. Okay? There are so many red flags, and that's why the Medusa came out. But I have to, when I cry it out and I meditate on it, then I get some edge off, okay? And then I have to drink herbal tea. It's very important. And I have to talk about it with someone. But talking to Paul about it was not that helpful, because he was almost just as angry as I am. That's just like venting it out to someone who doesn't even have clarity in that moment either. But I mean, at least he understood how I felt, right? So, and that's important, to talk to someone who understands how you feel. And then you have to sit down in meditation and you have to understand that other person. And you have to say, okay, so just like the mountain lion, this is a person who is genetically greed-based, okay? And I'm not going to harbor some kind of hatred against this type of demographic. I'm not talking about an ethnic group here. I just want to make this very crystal clear. I don't know what ethnic group that lady belongs to. All I know is that she has a greed issue. Okay, that's all I know. Okay, and she's extremely dishonest. She wants to make money on cost of others, and who knows how many people she has shystered and made them sign their lives away, and then sued them, and the people actually have to pay for her lawyer. She can just make something up, sue them, and get their house, and then the other person has to even pay for her lawyer. And she probably has 2 or 3 lawyers already working there non-stop for her, like permanently. Who knows? I mean, I've met people like this before that have several lawyers that just constantly work for them. That's like full-time employees, lawyer employees. And those are the people that are often very shyster oriented, that have that already. The other people, most other people are like, they're kind of naive. They project their own kindness onto other people, and that's kind of like how I am. But I'm learning, I'm learning that you, the kind person, and I, the kind person, we need a lawyer too, okay? We need some legal protection too. And then again, can we trust that one lawyer, or do we need 3 lawyers so that they can monitor each other? If you have one chef cook, you probably need 2 or 3 in order for the chef cooks to monitor each other, just so that one doesn't get the wrong ideas. You know what I'm talking about. I'm learning about humans. You can call me tin-hatter and paranoid, but that's the result of learning through all of these years, dealing with shysters and crooks and criminals. Okay, that's what that does. And watching crime reports, okay, you learn a lot about humans. You learn that there are situations you never ever want to create, where you are at the mercy of someone else. People that have been in combat zones have learned their lessons, like Sean Ryan, who will never go into a car with someone. And I don't blame him. So that's not cynical or bitter for no reason. That's self-protective. Okay? You learn and you secure yourself. And that's how it has to be done. But in regards to anger, we don't want to be harboring a permanent anger or a grudge. A grudge is a permanent anger, like a sweltering, never-ending prejudice, or that is a grudge against someone or some group or some demographic, right? I don't want that in my life. Okay, so that's why I want to deal with anger in the proper way, and I want to understand the other person. And when it's genetic, then why get all worked up about it? That's their genetics, okay? And if it's not genetic, if it's something out of a trauma where they learned that they have to, where it's like one against the other in a world of despair, then I feel sorry for them. I feel like, oh, that must be an awful mental state, right? Or it's both, it usually is both, genetics and an upbringing of, well, you either make it or someone else will eat you or something. So that's a terrible mental state. That's also a terrible society to live in. So let's make this very crystal clear. We don't want a society like this where people are going to resort to stealing from others in order to survive, or outsmarting others because they're afraid that otherwise they would be outsmarted by the other person. And Paul and I, we are not that kind of people to outsmart other people for any reason. So we protect ourselves, and that's it. We never hurt someone. We would never shyster someone, okay? But I expect too much from other people, so I have to roll this back and say, I cannot expect. My mother always used to say to me, you expect way too much from other people. They can't deliver that. What you want, how you want them to be, okay? Like all saints and all of that. Saints and angels and Buddha ETs. No, they are not, okay? So the people that are decent, really decent, it's like 1%. That's not very many. That's an absolute margin of society, the people that are decent. And that's what I see, and it brings up a lot of anger, of course, and frustration and all of that. But it is what it is, okay? I can't change that. I can't miraculously take some kind of magic trick and turn this around and make them all good. It's not going to work, even if it's a headset reality, okay? So maybe a video game, but the players of each avatar are also kind of not right in the head, right? So, or they wouldn't be creating this Hunger Game on Earth, right? So, but I don't want this I don't want this situation here. I don't want to have this continue perpetually in this form of samsara, of never-ending birth and rebirth and death and suffering and anger and wars ongoing. I don't want that anymore. We need to fix this now, okay? And I do my best. I contribute my best to fixing this, and the only way I can think clearly about these things is if I deal with my anger and really, really heal through all of this, one step at a time. I heal it all in this one process, and then if it comes up again, I have to do the same thing again. Okay, sit with it, cry it out. understand the other person. What is this other person? They're different to me, okay? It's not their fault. That is how they are. I don't have to do anything with them. They don't have to be my friend, okay? I can never trust them. So I walk away and wish them the best and hope for the best for their children, for their partners, and so on, for their animals, and hope for the best that somehow they figure it out to also give kindness to another being. Okay, so that's all I pray to the blue God for that, for the whole world in this way. And I can still do the best I can. I can sign petitions for the animals. I can write a letter to a legislator. I can petition for a certain bill on X or in my YouTube videos to protect the farm animals, Proposition 12 and those kind of things. Yeah. So help support Wayne Pacelle and the good people. Wayne Pacelle is one of the top 5 good, best people, most kind-hearted people in the whole world. Okay, that's a fact. Okay. I'm grateful these people exist. So it's very important. Understand the people that are not well, and understand that the world does not only consist of those people. There are also good people like Wayne Pacelle. Then I get a better mind state. Okay, then it eases up. Okay, and then I can breathe. I can cry it out, and then I can calm down, and then I can take a nap or meditate in peace here under this English laurel, getting grounded, drink herbal tea, take care of myself, and then I'm happy again. And then I can talk about all of this and explain this process to other people so that they can do the same and they don't have to snap and do something terrible. Okay? You don't have to. I understand you. I understand Adam Lanza. I understand Elliot Rodger. They suffered terribly. Okay. So, but we don't have to bring it to this escalation. We can heal through this. Come out the other end, okay? Peace and love for all living beings.